It is 4 a.m. I am here with Skylar with all the things. We are checking our bag. We got the pack and play. We got the stroller, 2 carry-ons, diaper bag, backpack. We are loaded down, and then I have him in the ergo. Just makes it a little easier. He's awake right now, which is a good thing. Maybe he'll fall asleep. Our flight, it leaves at 6, so I'm hoping he stays awake till then. I can nurse him and he can fall asleep. Because he's a little tired, but he woke up so great. He's in his PJs right now, so. So we've had quite the travel. He did great. He slept for 2 hours. He was awake for an hour and probably a half because Dallas was so busy we could not land. So that made us miss our flight. We ran all the way. We're on the opposite side, took the trolley, ran to our gate. Our flight was still there, but the gate was closed and they would not let us in. So now we have to wait here for 3.5 hours till our next flight. And he's doing fine so far. He took a little cat nap while we ate. Now he's feeding. We have about, I think, less than 2 hours now. So hopefully it's perfect timing to nurse him down to sleep. I'm like, so we are home from our 7-day trip in Missouri, and we flew out. Our flight was at 8. We had to get up at 5, so that means Bubba's had to get up. We woke him up like 5 minutes before we left, so we woke him up at 5:50. He was fine. We had like an hour drive to the airport, so he fell back asleep, which is great. I'm sorry, I have a giant mosquito bite right here. Missouri mosquito bites are no joke. I'm so glad I got that on camera because that's so real life. He pooped like 3 times on the flights today. But honestly, overall today, he didn't nap as great as before. But he's actually honestly such a good, happy baby that they went so smooth. So our first flight was an hour and a half. He probably napped maybe 30 to 40 minutes, and that's it. But he was so happy anyways, and he's pretty easy to entertain. He loves his little crinkle book. He loves when, you know, we just talk to him and play with him. And then we had a short layover, so that was excellent. It was like, I think 50 or 55 minutes, so he was awake for that. So by the time we got on our second flight, which is 2.5 to 3 hours, he was ready to feed when we were going back up, and he did not go down. He did not sleep how he did before. He was awake, and then he pooped, so then I had to go back and change his diaper, and then my husband was able to rock him down, because the entire trip my husband had to rock him down. Like, he just does not want to nap with me. Like, he will just scream because he wants the booby. And so my husband obviously doesn't have that, so he just keeps kicking my hand. I'm sorry. We've been laying here for a few minutes, and so we've been laying here for almost 30 minutes, and he's just been super content. So I wanted to come on here and just say how the travel day was. And overall, I think the best thing is to not stress about it and go with the flow. Because he did get fussy at sometimes in the beginning when he was just like, okay, like when we were like on the flight, waiting for everybody to board, you know, sitting there waiting for them to close the doors and do all of that. He would get super fussy because I would like wait till we were like trying to take off before I would feed him. So that's when he would get fussy and go, and we just kept changing positions. But I think the best thing is to just not stress and not worry about anybody else. Because if your baby cries, like, do you ever think of like when you didn't have a baby and babies would cry on the plane? Did you honestly pay them much attention? Did you honestly? Like, I just keep thinking like, no one on this flight knows me. I'm not going to see them again. If my baby's fussy, I can only do as much as I can, and, you know, and if the baby's fussy, then they're fussy. It's really, you know, not the end of the world. You shouldn't get stressed about it as much as, you know, I know new moms, especially me, because I was freaking out before we were leaving for the flight, and just like throughout the entire week, it just like proved that like babies can adapt. And he was so good. We were on the go every single day in the car seat. We went to a theme park, you know, we went out to restaurants, we went out to dinner with people. We just made do, and our routine was totally thrown off. We weren't doing the feed, play, sleep cycle. Like, we were not doing that. We were just totally go with the flow. And I felt like that was so normal. And I just feel like me and my husband, like, I mean, we have no family here, so it's hard for us to go and do things all the time because we don't have anybody here. But I feel like it just created like a much better flow when we didn't have a set routine. I'm sure, like, yeah, set routines are great, especially because we're going to start sleep training, but it just felt so normal going and doing stuff, letting him sleep whenever he wants. You know, he was awake for 2 to 3 hours most of the time. You know, he was passed around to everybody. You know, he napped 30 minutes, he napped an hour, he napped 40 minutes, he had 45 minutes. Like, it was just so easy to flow when you just don't stress and, you know, don't worry about routines. But I just wanted to chit chat about the last flights home. How, you know, you can be, you know, of course you have your diapers and your wipes. We had to change his, you know, in our laps. I changed him in the bathroom. For the flights, I did have nighttime diapers on. Those obviously like flew out the window. Flying to Missouri was like way easier because he napped pretty much the entire flights, both flights. And he was in his nighttime diaper, and we only had to change it like once during the long flight. So the going was a lot easier, but it was early in the morning, so he was awake for a longer period of time, so he just slept, and it was just better. But again, it wasn't as great as sleep coming home, but he was still great. He fussed like a few but we made do, and he was great. So my best advice is to not stress, because I totally did going into our first flight and realizing like throughout this whole week that things just happen and it's okay if they do, if whether it's good or it's bad, or if he fusses or he's happy or whatever. And I just was not stressed about it or not nervous or anything for our flights home. And he did great. And then even, it's so funny how passengers were like, wow, your baby, he was so good. Like, I know, like, people, when you're on flights and you're next to a baby or you see babies on the flights, you're like, oh, man. But, and then so to have passengers at the end when we were exiting, they're like, oh my gosh, your baby was so good. He's such a good baby. And it just makes me feel so good. And people behind us, they're like, wow, like he did so great. And even our flights going to Missouri, it was this, like people were saying stuff. So it was really nice and encouraging. But best advice, don't worry about what other people think on the flight. You just do you. My poor. Huh, Bubs? Yeah, we just do us. Thanks, guys. This would be obviously a short video. It's just a few recaps, but I hope I gave you some tips. Not very many.